Hey, everybody. Welcome to our session on how product experiences ensure time to value and ultimately the growth for the company. Super excited to be joined by some fantastic panelists from post-sales leadership roles here. So we'll start with the intro a little bit. So I'm happy to start with myself. I'm Hershey, like the Hershey's chocolate, and I head up the PX post-sales team here at Gainsight. So usually the way I like to introduce myself is I'm a customer success by profession, I'm an accountant by education, and I am a DJ by passion. So I like to do a few gigs here and there a couple of times in a month and truly get a kick out of it being on the other side of the party. But I don't know if I can beat DJ Schemadox. I hope you guys are really enjoying his session. But yeah, over to Ryan. Would love to hear a little bit about each of you.
Great. So Ryan Davidson, I'm the Senior Vice President of Success at Invillon, which is basically all our post-sales functions and our success and experience programs.
That's me. Fantastic. And Ryan, we have an icebreaker for everybody. So here's a fun little icebreaker. Would love for each of you to, as you're talking about yourself, add a little bit about what was your first job.
My first job. So my first job, I was 15 years old. I was a church custodian, which was a great job. You're working in the middle of the night. You have the whole place to yourself. It's dark. It's quiet. But you learn something from every job. I learned like just how to get better, how to get faster. And then I'd turn on all the sound and play the instruments on the platform all night. So it was a great job.
Nice. Thanks, Ryan. Angel, how about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Angel Rogers. I'm the head of the Global Customer Success Organization at Rockwell Automation. And my first job was as a 15-year-old at Dairy Queen. So I got to make the blizzards, get the little swirl on the ice cream. It was a great first job.
Oh, wow. I'm sure having all those ice creams, hopefully complimentary, you didn't mind them at all at that age. Awesome. All right, Carolyn, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carolyn Pavelik, and I'm the head of merchant success at Octane. We work with e-commerce merchants of all scales and helping them ship their products. And as you can imagine, the last 2 years have been a little crazy for us. So my first job, it's interesting. It's a little bit of a combination of Ryan and Angel. I was also 15. And I worked at a putt-putt golf course. I had the vacuuming of the greens, but also had the concession stand and all of that kind of fun stuff. So it was a great way to enjoy a summer for sure.
Lovely. Thanks, Carolyn. Ben, you're the last one in the group.
Yeah. So Ben Stein, I run digital success for our customer success group at Salesforce. Team's really focused on helping our customers throughout their entire life cycle implementation through every stage of adoption and growth, and driving really a digital first experience to guide those customers to own their own success while providing the tools to get them to a success expert when they need it. My first job is working the front desk at a local athletic club when I was about 15, 16 years old. May not be a parent, but without actually knowing what I was doing, because back then kids didn't understand why you would drink protein. I had a lot of protein shakes. I mean, I was just like back there working myself and, making a delicious strawberry shake. In my mind, it was just flavoring, but a lot of protein at an early age without doing anything with it. So.
Nice. That's super interesting. Well, thanks, Ben. Super excited to kind of kick off our session and, have some interesting discussions and learning from all of you. And as you all know, we are here to really talk about how to leverage product experiences to fuel the expansion and growth for the company. And, throughout that process, like that key milestones in the customer lifecycle really begin with really understanding the user pain points and objectives, then moving on to maybe free trials for some products, and, kind of a seamless onboarding to ensure quicker time to value, and finally really understanding the customer feedback, sentiment, and representing their voice internally within the company. So as like would love for us to little bit touch upon each of those key milestones. I know each of them can be a webinar of its own, but based on your experiences, would love for all of us to talk a little bit about kind of what's worked, what did not work. And Karen, would love to start with you in how you guys are thinking about really driving these motions for your 130 customers, with really starting with understanding the pain points and addressing or reducing the gap between that pain point and the objectives that your product really solves for them.
Yeah, thanks. So our scenario is really interesting across 130,000 different merchants. But of scale, you have the small SMB or even the occasional person that is shipping out of their Etsy shop, or it's a side hustle business, all the way up to the largest of enterprises and doing large subscription businesses. And so if you can imagine, that spectrum is very wide, and trying to address that across 130,000 customers and give them each a good experience, but tailored to where they're at in their business. And so what we found was a couple of big key points. One was segmenting the type of customer or user they were, and were they a side hustle or were they an enterprise business? Why were they using our product? And then going down even into the users themselves of how did the users, are you somebody that's in the warehouse picking and packing, or are you the accounting person and needing the reporting? And so understanding the segments was one of the most important things, because we were getting all this feedback and everything coming at us, but without having that context, we weren't able to actually make any smart decisions. I'm not saying we weren't making decisions, but of educated decisions. Now that context has really helped us in driving new product functionality, and we'll talk about it a little bit in customer journey here in a little bit. But helping guide that segmentation was instrumental in everything that we're doing in the business today.
Got it. And Carol, I'm curious to know, how did you drive that segmentation? Like, how did you get educated on those kind of topics and data points, especially at that scale?
So great question. We started with a huge data gathering exercise and pulling all the information that we could around industries, size of the business, those types of things. But then we took a sampling of each one of those and did customer interviews and talked to each one of them to come up with why were they using the product, how were they using it, why did they buy, and we even reached out to people that had left, why did they leave, so that we could better understand. So you've got the data, but then now we needed the context rich of what were the decisions behind that, and you can't do one without the other.
Gotcha. Very nice. So kind of a blend of human touch and tech touch, data, exactly. But also like bringing the human aspect. Lovely. Ben, I was also curious to hear from you, like at Salesforce, you are probably trying to solve for some similar kind of, I wouldn't say kind of challenges, but also objectives.
Opportunities.
Opportunities, absolutely. So we'd love to hear how you are thinking about it, Ben, at Salesforce.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear a lot of similarities across this, but although different, goals, Carolyn and I have very similar outlook on this, right? So it's a great question, and data and data-driven decisions are obviously at the center of our customer success strategy. So, at Salesforce, there's so many products, and the reason why a customer buys, it's really important for us to understand what a customer's business goals and objectives are. So every data point, like Carolyn mentioned, segmentation, is key, and different segments have different goals and objectives. But for us, like capturing, that business goal and business objective is really key, whether that's at the point of sale, right, through an account executive, through digital assessments, and then through just, what we have to do a lot is looking at the usage, interaction, and engagement data from historic customers and current customers to really see what customers are trying to do and how they're trying to use it. And usually through the business goals and objectives, we kind of uncover, obviously, the pain points. With this data point, I'm going to just highlight, the business objective. Business goal is it's a key attribute, driving the personalization effort for us. So, but one of the things I think is key when we're talking about the pain points and business objectives is we also take it a step further and we have to have a specific measure of success to that business objective. It's really important to have a desired outcome, right, for the path you're putting the customer down. So a simple example, for us is a Sales Cloud customer comes in and identifies that they're, going to grow, they're growing their business and need something to better their process, help them close more deals. Well, we know what their objectives are, right? We know they're going to, they're using it for a very common use case for Salesforce. But we like, how are we determining if they're successful with that or not? Isn't always easy, and it's not always the same of what their usage is, right? So if I know trying to close more deals, I'm going to look at like the opportunity record, right? And really try to understand, like, if a customer is trying to close more deals, they better be utilizing opportunities, right? And setting up that process. So personalized experience that we're creating for the customer isn't just about getting them set up in their instance, which might be similar steps 1 through 3 for every customer, but really, what's that next step? What are we really trying to get them to do? How are we driving them to content or experience to understand how to get the most value out of the opportunity object, how to enable their end users or their peers, right, on this? And then looking 30, 60 days later at this program we set up that's personalized off all customers who have this specific business objective, are we trending or increasing their usage and seeing that go in the right direction, right? If they're finding success, right, in that, if they are doing that, what's the next best action we want them to take? What's the next data point we're looking at? If they're not, what can we do to help? And to your point, Hershey, that you made, like, whether that's pushing prompts, nudges, to different content digital, or if they haven't, engaged with that content, how are we driving them to a success expert? How are we doing that human and digital touch and really understanding what the customer needs based on what they are doing and what they're not?
Got it. So it's almost like really understanding, capturing their pain points, objectives, and driving the user journey, especially in the first 90 days, in a very prescriptive way, and really meeting them where they are, and in a very personalized and contextual way. And like really like product usage, product experience being sort of the front and center of it.
Exactly. Get it, where they are obviously is in the product. So how do we get the right information to them? There is exactly the point.
Fantastic. So also the other trend that we are seeing is PQL, like product qualified leads. That's where a lot of these product experiences and usage are coming in, because almost like it reduces that cost of acquisition or the amount of money we are spending on expanding, cross sells, upsells, or even free trials or POCs. So really curious to hear, Ryan and Carolyn, from both of you. Ryan, probably starting with you, of how you are focused on driving really the desired outcomes from product experiences from the customer that essentially fuels the growth or is the foundation of growth. And then Carolyn, would love to hear from you. Like, I believe you guys are doing trials. So trials, PQLs, how you guys are thinking about it.
Yeah, I can start. So I think for us at Invillon, we've got very targeted functions and users across the healthcare ecosystem. And so one of the primary, goals for us is driving adoption, for each user type. Carolyn talked a little bit about segmentation. That's important to us. But I'll give you a really good example of a challenge that we had and how we solved it, because ultimately we're looking to drive adoption growth. So there's a product that we have, and it's essentially helping a medical professional provide a medical assessment, with a patient. And every time they complete that assessment, that submission is monetized. And so it was really important, understanding that there was a certain percentage of assessments that would never be completed or would have a large lag from when they started to when they were finished. And it was a really good opportunity for us to make some really educated guesses about how could we drive, more completions, because it has a direct effect on revenue itself and just better outcomes for patient, more efficient healthcare paperwork. And what we were able to do was analyze. We were using Gainsight PX. This was one of the first identified use cases that had interested us in the product. Analyzing the users to understand how often is this happening, and where are they stalling out? If you look at how they're flowing through the product, Are there areas that you can identify that where people tend to slow down, perhaps get confused, the behavior is less predictable? And those are really good opportunities to put some kind of a prompt, some in-app, some guided help. And so we set the hypothesis that if we changed a couple things in the product itself, just with some in-app engagements, could we drive a meaningful change in the amount of completions? And it really worked out. And so there was a direct revenue effect associated with that. Much happier customers, happier patients. But out of it came a wealth of information about what was really going on. And for us, that was really the difference in making the investment in something that gave us that deep analytics into how users were behaving, but then also a way to then use that data to drive in-app, kind of nudges, guides, contextual help, whatever it might be. And it worked out extremely well. And I think this is where, when you think about segmentation, that analysis will also identify for you a really obvious segmentation of roles that you didn't really understand existed. People that have a slightly different goal or behave differently or have a different skill level. So that level of insight is important. So, analyze, segment your users into the groups with certain, predefined outcomes, set a hypothesis, and then measure and test it and rinse, repeat. And having a way to do that and avoid working with an engineering team to say, hey, can you put this in the product? We're very interested to see if it might drive different behaviors. Having a way to very rapidly, over days and weeks, experiment with different ways of engaging people has been, a real game changer for us. So that level of personalization has been very helpful.
Wow, that's amazing, Ryan. And, me coming from the PX side of the house, heading up post-sales, music to my ears. When customers tell me that, they were able to drive excellent outcomes. So you absolutely made my day. So Carolyn, would love to hear from you, since it seems like personalization, segmentation, data really is coming up as a central theme from our conversation. So how are you driving that with respect to trials or product qualified leads and creating those opportunities and, fueling the growth?
Yeah, I think Ryan, we'll be talking after this. So because I think I'm really excited about things we've talked about, but with PX. But one of our core products is a product called ShipStation. I would be surprised if most of you have not seen one or many of our ads and maybe hate us for some of our ads. But if you think about it from a perspective, 100% of what we drive is through a trial process, and I would call it to some degree product generated lead. So we are trying to get to almost a zero touch of 98% of our customers coming in, so that we can get them up and running. And you can look on the website and see the price points and understand why. It's a monthly transactional fee. So how do we get merchants up and running in a lowest touch possible way, but also looking at their success? And so one of the biggest things that we identified is that journey that Ryan was talking about as well and it's one, what path are they currently taking and what path do we want them to take, and how do you start driving those moments? And some of them are not only just actions in the software, but it's steps in the process. So for us, we need somebody to print the first label. And if we can get them to print that first label, then we know that the conversion of the trial goes up significantly. So we're monitoring a whole bunch of steps around what are those 4 or 5 elements and where are they dropping off there. And if we can get them past that step, then there's another journey about getting them to adopt other parts of the software. And then it goes into that segmentation. And it's not just customer segmentation, it's user segmentation as well. So I have somebody that's an admin. So we've done the same thing we've put in Pendo alerts or different things in the product. So if you're an admin, we're going to guide you through to some settings, versus if you're somebody just printing or importing orders, we're going to highlight those elements in the software. But it's a very difficult. We're not absent of engineering yet. And so I think there's a lot of things that we'd like to be able to do at speed, and then better understand that journey. So we don't have all of the product notifications yet for us to get into that next level of journey analysis. So we have what we think the standard path is, but on what clicks and things that people are making, that's another level that we're just now starting to dig into, and we think we can do a whole lot. But just understanding those elements has changed everything about how we run our sales process, how we run our onboarding process, when we reach out to customers versus, and one of the things we talked about, and I think we'll talk later, is people want to engage with you in different ways. So we're sending them videos or sending them something and see which way they want to interact with us as well. And that helps us drive that segmentation as well.
Got it. That's super interesting. So like what I'm catching is Ben and Carolyn, both of you really mentioned about knowing what are those first aha moments or like the key value features for your users as they come into your product, whether it's kind of trial experience or it's, post sales, kind of post during the onboarding phase. So that's kind of critical, and really using the data, looking at usage patterns from your past successful customers to determine that, and like driving those journeys in a very, very personalized ways. So that's actually a great segue to talk about, one of the key milestones in a customer lifecycle, onboarding. And, Angel, would love to hear from you, how you guys are thinking about onboarding experiences for your customers, and really driving that kind of personalized touch while still being digital first.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important topic. I have to start with pointing out that I think digital customer success has held a somewhat negative connotation over the years. I think it kind of started as being an approach where either those customers paid less or we didn't have customer success coverage. And I think it's really evolved past that. And now it's where our customers want us to be interacting with them, right? They really are thinking about a digital first approach with how they run their business. And it's how they're consuming some of the information that we're delivering now. I think it's all about the time to value in terms of onboarding, right? And defining what that customer's version of value is, not necessarily the company out, but the customer in. Making sure that you identify those key milestones as part of an onboarding process. And again, understanding where you can engage with them through an automated or digital fashion where they can go reach the assets and the information they need in their time and when it's convenient to them. And really just making sure that they have a way to submit their preferences. If a customer wants to speak to someone, you have to have that customer success manager available to them, right? So it's digitally led, but people backed. The other thing I'll tell you that we invested in at Rockwell that we've actually just hired and launched is what we're calling a success plan developer or a playmaker. And their entire job is to listen to our customers, listen to our customer success managers, and take the data and create really important digital journeys as part of that. And onboarding is no exception there. So making sure, again, that like we are taking all of these sort of voices and feedback mechanisms and creating the engagement model and the journey based on that.
Got it. So it's almost like we've in the past seen the premium for human touch is that personalization and really understanding the customers and meeting them where they are. And we are now really bringing that in the product experience in the digital-led first world, where we are using data to understand the context of the customers, feeding that in the data and really meeting them still where they are, but digitally in a kind of a more scalable and efficient way. But also to Angel's point, kind of giving that time for them to do it at their own pace and have resources available to them as and when they need, rather than us kind of sometimes, overreaching to customers and like, hey, we don't want to talk to a CSM kind of thing. Very interesting. Ryan, also curious to hear from you, as you guys are so much focused on driving these digital-led and in-app experiences. What are your key focus areas with respect to customer onboarding at Invillon?
Yeah, I would say it's changed a lot in the last year as we've been able to think about how we get to essentially a zero-touch onboard experience versus the traditional, someone goes through an education and a learning phase before they're really able to step into production and be productive with your product. And In-app engagements have been, really the key element to that strategy for us. And one of the areas where it worked was we really had a scaling challenge where we would essentially be, with the introduction of a new product, quadrupling the number of users that are actually in the product. And of course, you want to do that without having to add more support resources, calling in with problems, hiring trainers, that sort of thing. And so by being able, the real focus was, how do you expect them to behave on day one? So just for some context, this is a solution that would allow like a health plan, a health insurer, to collaborate with their provider networks, all the doctors in their network, on shared patient outcomes where they're trying to improve specific measures, different cancer screenings, whatever it might be, and see patients that they're taking care of together get healthier. So it's a tremendous amount of data, pretty sophisticated look at what's going on into the lives of hundreds of thousands of patients. And so how do you enable, 15, 20, 30,000 people to on day one get value out of that solution? So the ability to analyze, is their behavior and their adoption growing the way that we think it is? How can we proactively provide the different channels for people that might even learn a little bit differently in that first phase? You got the people that want to read, but we start with the guided tour, having a really good guided tour, understanding your different role types and having the little feature highlights and feature tools to direct them to what is going to be important for them is critical. And then seeing what is the uptake on that. That's been a really, really important function. It's just made it, and again, so easy to iterate on. So as you're learning from their behavior, and if you're seeing the adoption curve that you're expecting, you can constantly make a new hypothesis and change the way that you're interacting. But I would also say support's played a really important role, and it's why support's been such an important part of any kind of onboarding, or enablement that's going on when we launch a new customer, because we want to be able to watch what is the ticket volume coming in. Can we successfully deflect tickets? And even having the insight, using whatever platform you have available for us, it's PX. Can I then give my support team the insight into what people are doing so that by the time they're on the other end of the phone or email, they know exactly what this user, that probably can't articulate exactly what was going on when they encountered some kind of a problem. But that reduced, we had double-digit reduction just in our mean time to resolution, just since implementing that solution, which is huge. It just means we could solve problems faster, and we knew exactly how to talk to the person on the other end of that interaction. So that was a really big part of it. I would say the personal touch matters a lot too, because one of the things that we've been able to do there that goes over really nicely is if somebody communicates, it might be in a phone call to a CSM, it might be through a support interaction of some sort, but actually identifying who a user is, being able to give them a short little 30-second video where I can say, hey, Hershey, I saw that you had a question about this. I just wanted to walk you through it, and give a little in-app demo that's personalized to that one user. That knocks their socks off because it's so specific to them. And it's a really easy way to turn somebody into a fan when they know you're actually on the other end listening. So all those little signals have been helpful. Even things as simple as, browser and language detection, like doing those things really quickly. So you can say, hey, you'd have a better experience in Chrome. That was one too, where we pretty much eliminated, troublesome browsers with people on a specific application just by being able to notice what they're using and gently give them some encouragement to switch. But when it comes to I would say that onboarding experience, going as zero touch as possible, but having as many channels for them to explore beyond the in-app tours is really important. So a really robust knowledge center or help guide, whatever it is that you have, lots of little video tutorials, a community where they can connect with other users and ask questions. I think you can't have too many channels for someone to help themselves.
Very cool. That's wonderful, Ryan. It sounds like data is really like the critical piece in understanding users, or even creating such strategies, or even revising our programs, let's say quarterly over quarter, right, from our learnings. And what we've seen is customer feedback is a very, very critical, part of that data point in informing not just our product strategy or roadmap, but like our overall strategy as a company with respect to segmentation, engagement models, the various channels that we provide, what's working, what's not working. So Ben, I'm curious to hear from your perspective. Sometimes, there can be a lot of noise in the data, especially, when we're trying to capture customer feedback. So how do you guys filter out that noise and really, make a informed data-driven decision at Salesforce for your segment?
Yeah, there is a lot of noise from customer to success manager to product teams and stuff. But I mentioned before, data and the data-driven strategy is necessity to drive the experience. So I can hear it from everybody. Obviously, we're at a point where every customer expects that. They expect personalized experience. They expect for us to know more about them. They expect recommendations based on that, right? So, and for us, in order to filter out the noise, we have to take into consideration all our stakeholders' feedback. So, no matter what tool you're using to gather customer feedback, along with the product team's direction, the field input or a success manager, right? And really match that up against, in addition, what's one of the most important things is the insights and signals and what they're telling us. Customers are telling us the product, is complex. I know you guys are going to all be shocked. Salesforce, people say it's complex and harder to implement than the sales rep made it sound. Where the customer says it's hard to implement, that's good feedback, but knowing where they get stuck is often hard to ask them, because sometimes they don't know what they don't know. They're searching around for it. We need to look at, how they're engaging, what they're interacting, what content, it seems like they're getting stuck on. Ryan mentioned it in the app, right? Looking at actually data from all the customers and taking that data, in mass and looking at where customers are getting stuck versus where they're not, to really understand how we take that customer data and our customer feedback and implement it, into the product. So product says it's steps 1 through 6. That's how they set it up. The field says it's actually 1, 4, 3, 5, 2, 6, right? We have to kind of, cut through the noise. It's all valuable feedback. But how we aggregate that with the insights is, at a macro level is really important. What are healthy customers doing? Where did they interact and engage? What did they do first? What path did they take to find success, right? The data and the signals, to me, at an aggregate level, help cut through that noise. And you have to know what you're looking for first. So taking all the feedback is important, but you have to know what you're looking for to really have the data, apply it to that to get the results out, and take it back to the product team to help them optimize, and product marketing to help them, drive future optimization of that product, that feature, or the creation of new features and products. We really need to simplify for our customer, and we have to use the data to do that.
Absolutely. And talking about product team, I'm sure all of us have had interesting experiences in our collaboration with the product team. So, AJ, I'm curious to hear from you. How do you internally collaborate, with your product team to successfully represent the voice of your customer and, drive that successful collaboration ultimately with product team, which impacts the customer experience positively?
Yeah, I think for so many years, customer success has kind of been a consumer of product roadmap. Customer success has been pulled in after the fact to go communicate it out to customers and sort of be that bridge. And I think that's really evolving to being a part of that roadmap build. If you're doing customer success right, no one should be closer to your customers than your CS team. And being able to be a part of that roadmap planning, being able to say, here are where enhancements could really impact our customer loyalty. Here's where we have improvements that need to be made that we're seeing churn as a result. Even down to here's what telemetry, if available, could allow us to even be more effective in our roles and provide a better experience for our customers. These are all things that, if collaborating correctly, the customer success organization can really be a strong voice with product. And I think it's just really important to have kind of continuous information, right? It can't just be a quarterly review. We have to make sure that it's happening in somewhat real time. But it also goes back to what Ben was saying. I mean, we get a lot of anecdotal feedback. Sometimes we have, really large customers that have a very singular problem that might have the loudest voices. And it's so how do you take the data that you have, the customer sentiment that you're receiving, and really tie that back to the impact that these changes and enhancements could make for your overarching customer base. And so I think, if you go to your product team too many times with just kind of that, my customer's upset, the hair's on fire sort of reaction, I think they start to maybe tune you out a little bit. So it's, again, really coming with a well-rounded approach, data-backed approach, and helping them tie it back to their goals as a product team as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Angel. Like, that's something we've also seen going with the data really helps with the product team and the impact on the revenue ultimately, or even the churn percentage or retention percentage also helps. So, thanks for sharing some things that have worked for you. And since everybody in the group is actually doing digital led in some form, either like blended or like a full segment digital led. One question that comes up very often, especially, as we talk to our customers, like, hey, who owns these in-product journeys? Which team drives it? Second, of course, they don't ask us about the tool because, they're talking to us because they're using Gainsight PX, but that's kind of a common question in the industry right now. And like really process. So thinking about 3 Ps, who are the right group of people to drive this? What is the right product or tooling? And what processes kind of to put around these? Because, sometimes it can be overwhelming and user fatigue is a real thing with respect to information and making them overwhelmed. So I would be curious to hear from each of you how you are driving this strategy of digital led with respect to like the people, process, and the tooling that you're using. And Ryan, we could start with you.
I'll tell you one of the things that we learned that's been really effective when it comes to the people side of that equation, because there is that debate of, okay, who should really own those digital experiences? One of the things that we did was we've got a customer experience function that lives inside of our customer success org, and expanded that to include enablement. And the strategy that we had was CX, because I think it's really important that it is, I won't make friends with this, but not the product team, because having a neutral party who is only concerned about the experience and the voice of the customer, they have no product like mindset to have to protect. They don't have the same confirmation bias or assumption biases. I think was really important, having a neutral party. But then looking at the product experience that people were going to have and trying to unify it meant that we wanted one team training our salespeople how to position and sell and talk about outcomes in a value proposition. And we wanted that same team leveraging the exact same material to be building any kind of education or help guides that would be customer facing. So now your customer facing message is consistent from the purchase into them perhaps taking training on a really sophisticated product. Then you're building out the tools you're using to analyze their behavior to ensure that the way that they were trained is the way that they actually use when they're adopted, and that the same people are building the digital experiences to change behavior that at the beginning helped make the promise in the sales cycle and craft what that message is going to be, define how it was going to be written in your help and support documents and in any kind of educational or training materials. They're also held accountable for verifying that and learning, is it working? Or do we need to change the way that we enable? So all the way through the end, I think has been really helpful to take this view that is essentially that enablement professional that has the mindset of sitting alongside the user and ensuring that they're getting what they need from the time we make the promise we're going to sell all the way through to them trying to drive some kind of outcome using the product. So that was critical for us, a neutral team, customer experience, but married with enablement, both internal and external, so the messages always match.
Lovely. And from a product perspective and from a process perspective, anything you'd like to share with the group? Which tooling or product you went with, kind of processes that you may have put in place?
I think the process-wise, the most effective thing was just having an interlock led by that team, where they're taking in the voice from support, the voice from what we're learning from the product, So it's definitely a tight collaboration with the product team there, having a really good interlock process of what kind of information is useful for this forum and for which individuals, how are we going to make decisions and prioritize what gets done as a result. I think nailing that process was the most important piece. And unifying it's been really important, because previously it would be product by product by product. You treated it a little bit differently. And instead we go as a full organization and make sure the whole suite is kind of participating in any discussion about how do we reshape experience based on, customer feedback. And I'd say the most important feedback that we were missing prior to bringing in a tool like PX was the non-verbatim feedback. Like, it's one thing to have surveys and customers are telling you directly, but learning how to listen to the telemetry and the signals of their usage so that you don't have to ask them the tough questions to play detective to figure out why things aren't working the right way. Getting that telemetry and developing the skill to identify opportunities to improve from it, I think was, again, really took things to the next level for us. So use the data, collaborate, but streamline it. Don't do a scattershot approach to collaboration when it comes to the process.
Very, very cool, Ryan. Thanks for sharing. Carolyn, would love to hear your thoughts on this topic as well.
Yeah, I would say we have a lot of lessons learned, and we're in the early stages of where Ryan and them are going. So again, we did a whole analysis because we thought we were deafening our customers. So we did a whole communication analysis of how many different departments, how many messages, and what type of vehicles were going out to everybody, and in what stage of their journey, their first 90 days, and the impact of those. And what we've realized is there's a whole lot going out and not a lot of people are listening. And so we're revising our approach, and we're also centralizing a process in the customer success organization where we are then using experimentation. So doing that through Pendo and enrollment of different merchants and doing tests, what messaging is working, where are we getting adoption. And then in that personalized, so that's kind of the digital strategy. And then in the personalized approach on major features, we're working with product to do the beta release. And so it's kind of that combined approach and finding the right messages that's resonating with merchants that we would then go out broadly once we release the product.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing, Carolyn. Angel, would love to hear your perspective on this topic.
Yeah, I'm going to take it in a little different direction because Carolyn and Ryan hit it on the head, and I would just be reiterating what they said. But when I think about digital in our strategy, I think it's twofold. It's today's execution. How do you make sure that you're orchestrating the digital journey correctly? How do you make sure that you are doing it in conjunction with the rest of your company? Your organization may not be the only ones reaching out to these customers, but making sure that we get all of that right today. But I also don't think that there's a single function within customer success that is evolving quicker than digital. And the things that we're talking about in terms of digital today, most people weren't thinking about 2 to 3 years ago even. So, we're actually in a process right now of our strategy for the next 5 years. And I'm trying to think of what's next? What are we not even thinking about yet, right? How do we start to apply machine learning and AI to the next levels? How do we start to predict our customers' needs and have it available to them all the time? And so I just say that to say, I think don't lose sight as you're trying to execute today on all of the exciting new things that are coming forward, and really embrace kind of what that future looks like.
Very cool. Thanks, Angel. And Ben, would love for you to round up the conversation for us.
Yeah, make me go last when everybody else has good points. But I think everybody hit on a lot of really good points, and Angel, you as well, on even going in a different direction. But all rings very true of what's next. I think to me, when it comes to the people, the process, what we're doing, it's a collaboration. Part of the challenge I think that companies get themselves into is who owns this and who really needs to drive this. And everybody has different goals. To Angel's point, everybody has different touch points with customers sometimes. Really need to come together, develop that North Star, that goal, that vision of really what are we trying to do, and who and what teams, what people should be responsible for what element of that. So, that's a really important aspect. And when it comes to what we're doing, Salesforce is really trying to, we hear all the feedback of complexity and challenges, and things are hard. So how are we simplifying our customers' lives, right? How are we simplifying their job? How are we helping the admin, right, who's setting things up, whether they are an expert admin or somebody who got told they were going to be an admin the day somebody bought Salesforce, right? How are we helping them to help their end users, right? Those are the things. It's not just inside the product, because there is things that when we look at what we're doing from a customer success lens, how we're trying to guide a customer, what they can do better, there's still some gaps in the product that we have to work with the product team on. Like, look, we can do all we want on the customer success side, but the fact is the product needs to change. And product is coming around on that too. So everybody's kind of bought in on this North Star of simplifying, making lives easier to do business with. Would love to, even with as complex as Salesforce is, get to where Carolyn is, of everybody's can do business, online. They can sign up, they can add licenses, they can remove licenses, all of that, right? Without having to talk to a person. That's complex, but it's something that as an organization, not just customer success, we're striving for. So working together, across everyone, I wouldn't say, Hershey, the tools. I mean, we build a lot of the tools. So, we're working on that as well, of what tools can we put in place to simplify our process internally as well, right? Ryan touched on something that's very near and dear to me, of the in-app experience is super important. How are we simplifying that for the customer? How are we putting things in the right place? But it's every channel, and the consistency that has to come across that channel, the orchestration of the data layers behind that, so that when if a customer goes to Google and does a search about a help topic they're looking for, they're seeing an article telling them to do the same thing that they would be seeing if they were in-app and looking at what the next best step is for them. And that's hard to set up, but that's what's needed to really ensure that the customer experience does feel easy and simple, that no matter where they go, they're getting a consistent message from us.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Ben, for the great roundup. I think we saved the best for last. And thanks everybody for joining. Definitely a very engaging and insightful conversation. Really appreciate you all taking the time and sharing some of your learnings and what's working, what's not working in fueling growth with product experiences. So again, thanks everybody, and thanks to everybody who could join and listen. I hope you enjoy rest of the day and rest of the CS Unplugged session. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.